So today I thought we'd take a look at my two heavy choppers that I use. I've got a Terava Skrama 240, and the 240 refers to the length in millimeters of the blade, and a Silky Nata 240 in single edge. They offer that one in a double edge with a bevel on the spine as well if you want it to have both sides as cutting edges. But mine was intended more for, I need something smaller than a hatchet, thinner than a hatchet for finishing, and the occasional chopping of vines and brush and such where using a hatchet would be a terrible idea, but you want something with more mass than a companion knife or a standard camping knife. So let's take a look through them, shall we? Again, you can immediately see that the blade cutting length is nearly identical. The price is pretty comparable as well, with just the plastic inset cover of the Terava Skrama, which comes inside of the sheath. Maybe I can show this to you. It's that black portion there. If you just want that as your blade cover without the leather, then you can get this for about $75 US plus shipping, which last time I looked, I think it was around $12 to $15. The Silky Nata you can get directly off of Amazon, and that one goes for somewhere in the neighborhood of $90 to $95, and it comes with a different style of sheath, which we'll talk about at length, because frankly I don't care for it at all. It's very modern looking, and it certainly comes in and out easily, but there is no retention at all unless you use the safety strap. If you pick this up and it's not buttoned in, it's going to fall right out, and that's a long chunk of blade to fall out. The weights are similar, but the Nata is definitely heavier than the Skrama. I expected to like the Nata more than the Skrama. I've had this Terava Skrama for at least 7 or 8 years. I love it to death. It's made of the CRV 80V2 steel, which is a low alloy tool steel. Very, very tough. Almost no corrosion resistance whatsoever. It will absolutely rust, which is fine. It's a woods tool. And the edge retention is okay, not great. It's certainly no 3V or Crewwear or M390, but it's also very easy to sharpen. The Silky Nata is made of a Japanese steel called SKS 51, from what I've been able to find, which is pretty similar in characteristics. It's a tool steel. I've seen it compared to 1060 carbon steel, but the difference is, from what I was able to tell, that the Rockwell hardness is much, much higher on this. So it is harder to sharpen, but in theory it should hold an edge longer. I haven't used this one nearly as much as I've used the Skrama for reasons I'll get into momentarily. The Skrama has an overmold handle that gives you multiple grip options. It's got this fine bevel right up here so that you can choke up and do some actual carving work. It's, ungainly, but you can do it. You have an option. The Silky's bevel is consistent throughout, end to end. The Skrama's spine, and this is where the weight difference comes from, is thinner than the Silky Nata. and they both are squared off. So yes, you could strike a ferrocerium rod off of either one, no problem at all. But that's one of those cases where I would sink it in and scrape like so, rather than trying to manipulate the entire length of that heavy, long, awkward blade. Now, why would you need something like these? If you are clearing brush, they are good. If you're cutting down vines, they are excellent. If you're chopping off small branches, they are a lot easier to handle than a hatchet. And I will show you my absolute favorite. After the winter, it's in dire need of a sharpening and a cleaning, but this is my camp hatchet, the Fiskars X11. I dearly love this thing. I've had it for years. Sharpen it about 3 or 4 times a season, and it lives out at camp most of the time in a weatherproof plastic tote. But if I'm delimbing with this, all the weight is at the far end, which does give you significantly more leverage and significantly less safety. And once you're working on a piece like this small, I can hit that and split it. Any smaller, I'm not confident enough in my ability to accurately strike. So I would use something much longer than what I'm about to show, but it's what is at hand. I would use a stick like this to hold it in place while I chopped as a sacrificial finger. So, now, reasons I don't like the Silky. The handle is not comfortable to me. It's comfortable when you grip it, but when you actually strike with it or baton with it, which is what these two get used for primarily, the shock reverberations through this handle are very, very noticeable. This synthetic rubberish overmold material is as grippy or more grippy, and provides significantly more cushioning to your hand. So when you baton, got my old homemade burro hatchet or baton here. I don't feel that in the handle at all on the Terava Skrama. Whereas even on a thinner piece with the Nata, right up through the hand and the wrist, it will turn your fingers numb if you were working on a larger piece. As for the edges, I also don't care for that choil. My hand wants to go there, but it's a dangerous spot for it to be for me. So the balance isn't quite where I'd like it either. It's a very well made tool, but they did a thing with the handle, or I don't really want to peel them all the way off, but you can see that the handle is intended to be replaceable, or rather, they probably intended for the blade to be replaceable. I really don't understand that. The blade is by far the most expensive portion of this, and the handle is intended to be where the money was spent. If you're to replace, I'd really just rather replace the entire thing if it ever gets to a point where that's needed. The angle on the Silky Nata lends itself more to being used as a batoning device, or a fro, as some people would refer to it in the old style. Because it has that slightly offset shape, it does put your hand in a slightly better position for doing that sort of work. The Skrama is dead straight. And you can feel the handle kick up a little bit more when using the Skrama for something like this. The Skrama is not purpose-built for this. It's purpose-built for general use. So it's intended to be a chopper, a delimber, a vine clearer, a brush cutter, and a batoning device. The Silky Nata feels like they intended it to be more for, I've read their ad copy, and it suggests the same uses as this, and you can certainly use it that way. But with the broader spine, it doesn't tear up your baton quite as badly as the Terava Skrama does. However, I usually require fewer hits on the Skrama, even though this one has more mass to it. I don't know why that may be. It may be just my biomechanics and the ergonomics, or the fact that I have developed a bit of an atavism of how much shock my hands are going to receive if I hit very hard on this. So I probably take more strokes getting through than I do with the Skrama, because this handle, I can hit it as hard as I want on the spine, and I'm not feeling the shock come through. So anyway, just a short video today on two large choppers in a carbon steel. They will rust, so what I use for protectant is I have a little plastic squeeze bottles of 50% ballistol, which is a mineral oil based lubricant and cleaner that has some esters added to it from what I've been able to find. I like that it's food safe, which means it's skin safe, which means it's non-toxic. Not going to be drinking from the bottle, but it's nice to know that it's, if you were to get it on your fingers and then handle food or accidentally rub your eye, that you're not in for a hospital visit or, slowly poisoning yourself. So that is actually the coating that you can see on the Terava Skrama right here. That oily sheen is 50% ballistol, 50% water. And I keep the little squeeze bottle in my backpack with a sacrificial rag in a plastic tin. And I just put a few drops on, wipe it down when I'm done with it, and then put it directly in the sheath. While we're talking about sheaths, as much as I hate the Silky Nata sheath, the Terava Skrama sheath, which does add about $20 to $25 to your purchase price, maybe as much as $30. It's been a while since I looked, but it's made of sustainable leather that's sourced locally for them. I believe they are a Finnish company. And this one, like I said, is years and years old. I use the Oberhof leather conditioner about once a year just to keep it from drying out and cracking. And it is gorgeous. It's got that full plastic insert that keeps the blade from cutting the inside. This one does have some retention, just naturally, without it being safety snapped around the handle. I really enjoy that. Even better, it's guided with a bit of jimping for your thumb. So you can see which way it goes in. Jimping goes towards spine. And if it's slightly dark outside, you can do it by feel without having to look at your hip. Because the way I do these, and I'll show this in another video, is I don't tend to put things straight on my belt. I'll use an improvised soft shackle out of paracord or 36 bank line and tie that off to a belt loop or to my belt so that I can quickly take it off without taking off my whole belt. But as general purpose tools, I would say you cannot go wrong with either of these, but the Terava Skrama always gets my vote for the one I reach for the most, and you can see that in the usage patterns. This one is far, far cleaner than the Skrama because the Skrama gets used much, much more. All right, so that's all for now, but thank you for watching, and if you like subscribing or clicking like, I'd really appreciate it. Until next time.